Begin Chapter 3, Campaign Planning Study or Fundraising Feasibility Study. The campaign planning study or feasibility study is essential. We've talked about some of the rules of thumb. There's two types: the campaign capital study that you're looking at that we've talked about quite a bit in feasibility studies. These can take place at the same time. They'll give you valuable information. In class, I have talked about how to not do this, and this is: you hire somebody, they spend a week talking to people, and they tell you it's feasible or not feasible. Can't be done in a week. Can't be done in a week. What you're trying to find out with the planning study is how much you'll be able to raise, what's the right goal. Again, 10 times what your annual donations are is a typical rule of thumb. What gets your donors excited? Who would be your campaign chair? Who's willing to volunteer for the campaign? And are there competing campaigns? Things which we have talked about in other chapters. So this is the campaign planning study, not whether or not it's feasible. What, why, when is what you're doing. So how do we embark on this? Well, we're evaluating the clarity and effectiveness of your case for support. Again, 5-year leading, 5-year lagging budget. People like to stay away from doing this. If we do it, we are far ahead of the pack. How I did it within my organization, we had a fund that was running out, and I wanted to determine the impact long-term on the organization of losing that money. And the impact was not as great as what we thought it would be. However, it kicked off an absolute need to not cut the programs and people that we'd have to cut in order to survive losing this funding. And it was a substantial amount of money. So I wanted to do this for myself, and this is how it best works. Someone who understands the finances of the organization and has access to full, detailed 5-year spreadsheets, lagging the last 5 years of monies the organization has raised, monies that the organization has expended. Someone who has full access to that would put this together. What did I initially do? I initially set up an Excel spreadsheet, and I filled in all the formulas with times 1.03. Basically increased all the categories by 3%. Straight on down. Then I looked at it. It's like, does this typically increase by 3% over the years? This was something that took seconds. Create the formula, you fill it into all of the blanks in the sheet going 5 years in the future, and you have a 3% inflationary increase of everything going forward. So where did the numbers not make sense? Where did they make sense? Where did they go down over the years? Energy costs are a good example of that. Where did they just stay flat over the years? Such as, we spend $1,000 a year on coffee. How did these things change? Why did they change? Or is this something that I can leave flat? Is this a way that we use to control the budget and to bring money down? Or do we have a 5-year agreement, for example, on the mortgage? Do we have a 10-year agreement on the mortgage? Do we have a 20-year agreement on a mortgage? Well, then that won't increase by 3%. But the first thing I did was increase everything by 3%. Then I started to tweak bits and pieces of this. And I learned this when I was mayor of a small town. Initially, there should be someone who understands the finances really well who creates your budget. Then that person goes to another financial person within the congregation, within the organization, within the group, within the board, whatever it is, and says, what do you think of what I did? Someone who's going to disagree with you is best. What do you think of what I did? And after that second person has tweaked it, you start going to various groups, your employees, your various committees, your various stakeholder organizations, and start talking to everybody in small groups about what they think about the budget. And you start making those alterations in the budget. Always save each alteration of the budget. Do not get rid of them. You may go back to an old version of the budget, but create multiple versions. This covers most of what's on this page. This covers most of it. After we've done this, then we can put together a timetable. People are starting to get excited. It's like, wow, you know, if we had X number of extra dollars, which I call a wish budget, we could hire 5 more people. If we had this $1 million, we could hire 5 more people. You said we could raise 10 times what we take in each year. We take in $100,000, 10 times that is $1 million, and we can draw off of that, and we could hire 5 part-time people. Oh my Lord. Then people get excited. Then people get very excited. So why do we need this? I think I've laid it out. It gets people on board. It gets people excited. It gets people ready for change and excited about change. Also bring on board your consultant who can give you a cold, clear-eyed view of what you're trying to do from the outside. That assists greatly with the planning study. Do your campaign objectives make sense? Are they perceived as important to the community? Are the plans appropriate to the organization and the community? Does the campaign have a chance of succeeding? Are capable donors likely to donate to this project? How much money are we likely to raise? Who do we need to talk to? What are the strategies? What are their approaches? Who can we bring on board? Why are we bringing them on board? Are we hearing all of the stakeholders? Are we hearing all of their voices? Are other competing campaigns being planned in the community? What's a reasonable timeline for the campaign? Again, the Gantt chart, which I'll bring up repeatedly. Do not forget you should have a Gantt chart. What's overlapping? What can overlap? What needs to happen first? Who's involved? That all goes into that chart, and it saves you a lot of time. Donors will typically expand your vision. They'll typically go beyond what you plan. They will typically get excited, and they will say, have you thought about this and this and this? So conducting your study, there's 3 phases. Assembling the necessary resources. Again, that's the spreadsheet. Gathering information through interviews and surveys, which means your consultant, your external consultant, should be chatting with people, and we should be focused heavily on anonymous internet surveys that allow people to comment extensively about the organization. You'll gather more information than face-to-face interviews. We found this out during the last presidential campaign. People actually lied to interviewers when they were asked who they were going to vote for. This is not judging the campaign. This is judging how the surveyors collected the information. People prefer anonymous online internet surveys to face-to-face surveys. You'll have some of your older folks who prefer being asked face-to-face. Most people do not. We know that now. It is not appropriate use of your time and money to spend doing a whole bunch of these interviews. Your major donors, you should conduct face-to-face interviews with, but this is a minority. This is maybe 5 or 10% of your organization. The vast majority should be interviewed via online anonymous means. And then preparing and presenting the report. Preparing and presenting a report. So you'll assemble your resources. You'll get different objectives after you've done this survey, and your consultant will gather all the information that is necessary. If there's been a recent big change, like you've lost your CEO, this may not be the time. Your consultant may tell you this is not the time. You just got a new leader for your organization. People don't know this person well enough. We're going to have to wait 3 years. You're going to have to spend 3 years getting ready. And then the report that you write should be presented to your leaders so that they can go through the report and make the right decisions about the campaign. Do you turn down monies that you raised during this phase? No, you do not turn them down. But you understand that you're going to be running a slower route if need be. If need be. Did a large factory in your community just close? You're going to slow down your process. You're not going to end it. You're going to slow it down. Who is the consultant going to be working with on a day-to-day basis? Who does the consultant talk to? Who does the consultant ask, am I on the right track? It should be the CEO. There also should be a lead volunteer that's working with them. The consultant should be the person who drafts your case for support with the assistance of the CEO and leaders within the organization. The consultant can give you an outside view of what your materials look like. Things that you think look wonderful may not look so wonderful to an outside consultant. You may not have a good point of view concerning how wonderful you look. Give you an example from my place of work. We've got a brand new secretary. The secretary walks around, talks to us for a few weeks, looks at our offices and says, you guys need to get new furniture. Our furniture is fine. We love our furniture. We've loved our furniture for the past 15 years. Why do we need new furniture? And she told us in completely clear words that our offices looked like they'd been furnished from thrift stores. A professional organization, people paying thousands and thousands of dollars for our services, and yes indeed, every office looked like it had been filled with thrift store objects. An external eye is worth your time and your money. It is definitely worth it. The consultant should conduct about 30 to 40 interviews on average. That's about it. Can gather enough information through 12 to 20 interviews in my experience doing qualitative research. But again, those should only be your largest donors who are contacted face to face. These should be lead donors that have an established record of giving large sums of money. When will the consultant report? It should take 2 to 6 months to prepare this report. Again, I know of an organization that asked if they should engage in a capital campaign, and within 1 week a report was delivered, said, nope, you shouldn't do this. You do not have the resources. Beginning, middle, and end of the report, you do not have the resources. A proper consultant review of your campaign and your proper feasibility study involves asking people, how much would you give? Why would you give this much? If your dollar amount is zero, why is your dollar amount zero? It's an in-depth campaign. It's conducted on the internet. It's conducted face-to-face, and you have a full picture of the organization. How do you go public without going public? You're just interviewing people about what they think about your organization. You can do this during the quiet phase, and what you're doing is a standard. We're gathering information about why you like us, why you don't like us, what you think we can improve, what you think we can change, what you're happy with, what you're not happy with. And that's valuable information even if you don't go forward with the campaign. So you can still be doing the quiet phase without telling everybody, well, we're doing this survey to decide whether or not we're going to do a capital campaign. Part of what you can do with a survey is assess all areas of strength and weakness within the community. Page 73 says basically you can cover what do they think of the executive, what do they think about possible future plans, and then your report should be distributed just to the board. I'll be clear about this. This is not something where the report is distributed widely for this. Your report about what people think about various things within the organization gets distributed widely. Your report concerning how much money can we raise is a board-only report. This is not a widespread report. This is a board-only report. How long will the study take? Again, 6 weeks to 4 months. We've talked about this. How much will it cost? Rule of thumb is $1 to $2 grand per interview. This is why staying with a dozen interviews is probably appropriate. Typically, a consultant will cost $40,000 to $50,000 to get a campaign up and running and completed. From beginning to end, 40 to 50 grand is a rough rule of thumb. You're basically paying someone the same rate that you would pay an attorney. This is a consultant who is, in the end, attempting to raise possibly millions of dollars for your organization. They are well paid. They are not paid a percentage. Just as with grants, it is unethical for them to receive a percentage of what is raised. Within grant work, it is unethical to receive a percentage. The person is paid by the hour. And they should be able, the consultant should be able to tell you what their certification is, what their understanding is, what capital campaigns they have done, how much money they have raised in these campaigns, what types of organizations they've worked with, so that you know that they understand what your needs are, they understand the community, and they know how to raise the type of money you're trying to raise. You can more easily find someone who'll help you raise $200,000 than someone to raise $10 million. It's a different skill set. It's a different level. Be certain that your board members completely understand what you've been doing and how you've been doing it, because you should not need a consultant for campaign 2. Campaign 1, you need a consultant, and a proper consultant is going to train you on how to do the campaign. You will know and understand how to do this. So when you're doing interviews, list of interviewees is very simple. These are your folks who are your top givers. Your top 10% of givers are the folks that should be interviewed. Review the interview questions. The board should help write the interview questions. Anybody can write an interview question. The consultant helps you massage the questions into the appropriate format. I always tell people when I'm writing a survey for them is, I want a list of questions about things you are interested in. I do not want you to attempt to write survey questions. Just give me a list of questions of what you are interested in. We will turn those into survey questions as a group. I will show you how to create survey questions from what you have put together. But do not attempt to write scientific research survey questions for me. Just, are you interested in how many people are interested in picking up a puppy within the next year? That's your question. I will turn this into a likelihood question, and what's your time frame, and how many puppies, and how much you're willing to pay. We'll turn this into a research question later. Don't try to do it now, because it'll stop you from asking the right questions. Review a draft of your report, review a draft of your survey. SurveyMonkey works perfectly fine to write these. Pilot your survey before you send it out to everybody. You should pilot it with a few board members to see what it looks like, to see what they like, what they don't like. And then we talk about who we're going to talk to face to face. And there's a sample letter on page 76. This is just basically, here's what we're doing, here's why we want to interview you. You are one of our top 10 donors, you're one of our top 20 donors, you're one of the top 10% of our donors, and we are embarking on a capital campaign. Again, this is the quiet phase. The deep pockets understand confidentiality and privacy. You can safely send the letters out to them. If you are not comfortable sending letters out to them, you can safely call them. They understand the vital importance of confidentiality and privacy. The interview process can be stressful, so sometimes it might take time. Sometimes you're taking them out to lunch. And always ask people, is there anything else I should have asked? And if your consultant sees immediately that this is a question we should be adding, the consultant should have the power to just add this question to the survey, to the face-to-face interview. And if you see stuff coming in during your survey where you know you're missing a question, then alter your survey. Close the survey one out, set it aside, make a copy of it, add your new question. It's not a big deal. Don't say, gee, we should have asked that question. You're only 10 surveys into a 1,000 survey project. Add the question. Thank your interview participants. I suggest taking them out to lunch for the interview. I suggest taking them out to a quiet private lunch. Be cautious where you take them. Make sure that it's a place where you're going to have privacy. Make sure that it's a place that they like, and pay for their lunch. That works for most people. If they want to talk to the CEO, bring the CEO along. These are your major donors that you're spending the time and effort with. After the study, this needs to be put together, and a roadmap needs to be created from this. Take time to prepare the essential elements that you have to strengthen before you start the campaign. this is what you're gathering. Even though you are in the quiet phase and you are starting the campaign and you are building the campaign, use this preliminary data to inform what's going to happen in the public phase. Your working goal might be too high or too low. You might talk to the first person. It's like, well, if you need $3 million, I'll write a $3 million check right now. That doesn't mean the campaign ends. That does not mean the campaign ends. That means your campaign goal was too low. So you set the goal higher. It's like, well, we've got $3 million. We are ready to go with the ask phase, not because we have the $3 million, we have everything in place. We've got our large donation. We're going to be able to accelerate the plan. We're going to be able to raise more money. It's telling you that your goals are too low if you can raise the money too quickly. And that's one reason for the quiet phase. We want to know if the goals are realistic. And we may find during the quiet phase that people are completely unwilling to fund the project. We need to revisit it. We need to ask them why they're unwilling to fund it, and we need to change the goals. And this finishes Chapter 3. Thank you for your time on Chapter 3.